Welcome to the ACS podcast family.
We're your hosts, Angie and Charlene,
where every week you can find new material centered around your life.
Thanks for joining us on our journey.
Hey everyone, we're so glad you're here. This is a new month and we have a new topic, so welcome to episode 5, week 1 in self-care. Today we're going to be talking about spiritual self-care. There are several different types of self-care, and each week we'll be focusing on a new area. And today we want to open it up by talking about our spiritual self-care and what that means and how that can look in our lives. So something that we want to note is on this show here, we're going to maybe interchange some words. Charlene and I both believe in God, so we will be using that word quite a bit. However, feel free to interchange that. If that doesn't speak to you or that is not your religion, that's fine. If universe speaks to you, use that. If it's Buddha, if it's whatever word is right for you, you can kind of interchange that. Really, we're just trying to find that connection to our higher power.
Absolutely. So, spiritual self-care. Let's talk about what that means. How do you self-care for your spirit, for your soul?
So what I have been studying is that we are a spiritual being having a human experience. So a large part of us is spiritual, and our spirit has that connection to a higher power, to God, to the universe. And being able to bring that in and care for that part of ourselves is something that is very important and allows us to find joy and satisfaction in our lives and where we're going when we're connected to that part of ourselves.
Absolutely. So something you say often is you can't pour from an empty cup. So no matter if that's with your work or if it's at home because you maybe have a new baby or a new puppy or something that's causing less sleep, if you are working towards a promotion, if you're starting your own business, all of these things can affect your spiritual well-being because you're tired, you're thinking nonstop, you're running yourself to get to a goal. Even if that goal is to just go to bed at night. So taking some time for your spiritual self-care is so important.
Absolutely. And sometimes we may not even be run ragged. Sometimes you may have extra time in your schedule. You may be finding time to relax or do those things, but different areas of self-care for ourselves can be neglected or can be lacking because we do things without thinking about them. And one of the big key takeaways for self-care is to have it be intentional. You should know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So there are a lot of different ways that we ignore the warning signs or we don't recognize the fact that we're not actually giving ourselves the attention that we deserve.
Right. And I think for me anyway, the best part of spiritual self-care is that it's usually free. So when there's something that I need to do, it's not going to cost me to take a few moments and, say a gratitude prayer or take a few moments and work on my meditation or take a few moments and read a devotion. So usually those things are all things that I can do that cost very minimal, if anything at all.
Right. So let's talk about you. Use some great examples, and maybe people are familiar with these things or maybe they aren't, but let's talk about some different ways to achieve spiritual self-care. Again, a lot of times when people think of self-care, they think about going to a spa, spending all day at a spa. And while that might take care of one aspect, a lot of times, like Charlene said, that spiritual self-care or that self-care in general doesn't have to cost anything, let alone large dollar amounts that people say, well, I can't take care of myself because I don't have the money. That's not what it's about. So let's talk about some different things that we can actually do to take care of ourselves spiritually.
I think the first thing is to recognize a creator. So recognize what you believe. So we believe in God, that God is our creator, but recognize what you believe and start right there. Start with that there is a higher being. Start that with where it all started, and just start a teeny tiny focus on a big picture.
Right. And that's all it takes, right? Is that one baby step to get you started and to move you in that direction. And recognizing that you have that connection to a creator, to a higher power. I mean, you didn't just come from nothing. Whether you believe in whatever it is that you believe in, you didn't come from nothing. So how did you get here? The odds that you're here, if you Google that, there's a lot of research that's done out here, but the odds are astronomical. The probability is higher than the number of atoms there are in the world.
That's
so
crazy.
If you think about what the odds are that you're here and that you're you exactly as you are not a mistake, and you have that connection to that higher power and to a creator because you were created for a purpose.
There's only one you.
Once you do that and you recognize that you were created with a purpose, you can recognize that other people were created for a purpose as well, and that we all have a connection to one another. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we can do to kind of get in tune with some of that as well is meditation. I don't know if any of you guys have a meditation practice, but if you don't, I would highly encourage you to give it a try and to be patient with it. Shirley, and I know you have a meditation practice. What was your experience when you first started?
Well, okay, so my meditation started way before I knew it was meditation. My mom used to tell me to find a happy place. And when I was getting upset or getting scared, sad, even if I was too happy, she'd be like, well, whoa, go and center yourself in your happy place. And so for me, when I was a little kid, it still is to this day, is this beautiful meadow that was just calm, and actually like the weather is today, it's probably sunny and in the 70s. And then she would say, great, now go get in a box. And I'm like, what? And I still can hear my mother in my head. And I literally would be a little kid in my imagination playing around in the meadow, and then I would get into a box and everything would be white and I would just be in a room of nothing. And then I would just sit there and think about whatever it was that would flow in and out of my mind. Now, when you're a kid, it was, rainbows and ponies and birthday cake. And, now I will just sit and it's almost like colors just flow and the box will start to change colors. And then eventually, my brain will tell me, hey, time to get out of the box. We can't stay here forever. And then the box slowly fades away. I'm back into my meadow, and then I'm out of my meadow and I'm back into my room. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy to some people, but it has just been, it was taught so young to me so that it's so easy for me to do it. And when I can't do that, I pick up my phone and I use a guided meditation, and they'll walk me through whatever, calm down for the day or whatever it is that'll bring me through.
That's great, because you talk about both ends of the spectrum. And I actually have a meditation practice as well. However, it's not something that was taught to me from the time that I was young. But I used a meditation app to get started. And these days I don't always need one. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This morning was very difficult for me to get into my Zen place when doing meditation. So I did pull out my meditation app and I used that. There are free apps and there are free meditations out there. So it's not something that you have to pay for, and you can start small. It's a practice, right? You can make time 1 minute out of the day to meditate, up to however long you want. There's a saying that I read in a book, and I don't remember who the saying is from, and I don't remember what book it was in, so I apologize for that. Maybe I can go Google it and put it in the show notes. But what it said was, if you're busy, meditate for 1 hour a day. If you're really busy, meditate for 2.
Right.
And that is something that seems very counterintuitive, but when we slow down, when we give our brains that break, when we turn that off, we can find our intuition, we can find our calm, we can find our peace, we can be more productive, we can be more fulfilled, we can get through the stuff that needs to happen. When we can get rid of that anxiety that comes along with having a to-do list that we don't get done, or when we can get rid of the stress or reduce the stress that we have, or even we need a chance to see clearly what's important and what's not important, because we see everything on our list as life or death, when really only life or death is life or death. Right. And so what's left on your to-do list is something that you can prioritize, and there is stuff that can fall off your to-do list. There's stuff that can move to the bottom. There's stuff that can be moved to the side, and that meditation can help you really get clear on that if you stop and listen to the voice that's inside of you talking about that.
Right, absolutely. Starting with just even a minute or 2 minutes, and working your way up. Work your way up to that 60-minute mark if that's your goal, to be able to sit for 60 minutes and gain that clarity. But if you don't start with 1 minute, you're never going to get to 2. You're never going to get to 3. So just take a minute.
Right. And even if you're having trouble taking a minute to start your meditation practice, you can start with following your breath. Just concentrate on taking some big, deep, even breaths. And that can slow the brain activity down a little bit. What we want to do is turn off all the chatter that's in our heads. It's constantly there. And taking care of ourselves spiritually means that we need to connect with that part of us that is more than our conscious awareness.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know how to breathe, but there are apps too. So I know like the new Fitbits have a breathing app. I'm sure an Apple Watch has a breathing app where you just hit it and you follow it for 15 seconds and you reset your breath. So it's not just breathe in, breathe out. You want to breathe in, like you said, evenly and slowly. You want to start again.
So there's some techniques, box breathing or even rectangular breathing, where you breathe in for a certain number of counts, you hold for a certain number of counts, you breathe out and you hold. So like you breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, and hold for 3 seconds would be a square breath. And those are what those apps are really good for, is they'll give you a clock so that you can watch the time ticking and you can really focus just on when you're supposed to breathe in and breathe out.
Right. I know for me, sometimes my brain's going too far ahead, and then I'm like, 1, 2, laundry, 4. What number was I on? Start again. So sometimes really that app is really helpful for me anyway.
And it's okay if you lose count. It's okay if you lose focus. Like I said, when I started, I think it took me a good 3 months for me to finally be able to get into the zone on a regular basis, for me to shut off all the chatter that was in my head. And your thoughts are going to come and go. One of the apps, the Headspace app, has a description on it that kind of talks about meditation like the blue sky. The blue sky is always there, and our thoughts are the clouds. Right. And usually in our heads, it's very, very cloudy. And what we're just trying to do is clear away the clouds, is to let the clouds float by and see that blue sky that's always there. So know that even if it seems challenging, even if it's something that you're not used to, the more you practice, the better it's going to get. And some days there's going to be clouds, and some days you're going to find that blue sky. But that blue sky is there for everyone, because we all have that spot or that spirit inside of us.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, because okay, in my meadow, sometimes it is really cloudy, and it is, a big breeze that blows away my clouds. And that probably is, if you're looking at your physical being with your spiritual being, like my breath actually calming it and blowing it away. I don't know, when you said that, it just like,
light bulb.
That light bulb went off. That makes sense. So something else that I do to get into that space, because like I just said about my meadow, is I go out into nature. I have to. I love going for a walk. And yes, I do like walking downtown and going and being around people and being there. But I need, for my spiritual self-care, to go to a forest preserve, or to at my mother's house. She had a backyard that was amazing. I could just go sit in the backyard because it was surrounded by trees. She lives in the woods. But now I live in a subdivision, so I have to actually physically go someplace and just be there. Don't just like sprint through trail. Go sit where you want to sit. Maybe it's not on the bench. Maybe you sit on a log. Maybe you sit in the grass. Sit and then breathe. Just take it all in and watch how it just lifts your spirits, having all of that nature around you, the chemicals from the plants and everything that's in the air and all the happy animals that, just live happily in the forest.
Have you ever been in one of those areas and you have to touch the nature, like you can feel the energy coming off of it? You're like, I just need to absorb some of this. I have to touch
I take my shoes off.
Yes, I do too.
Yes.
Go walking barefoot or touching the rocks or touching the trees and just absorbing that, because that really does fill you up spiritually. And we are created from the same energy that all of that stuff is. So getting back in balance and getting to that energetic state of just being. We are human beings, not human doing. So sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that. Surround ourselves with nature and just be present.
There's some really great books on forest bathing, they call it, which is, at first when I saw it, I'm like, wait, people like go run around naked in the forest? That's where my head went. But it's not in it. It'll just, if you need some help feeling those things, there's always books. The library's got tons of them. So again, another free resource if you need to, if you don't want to buy something, to take the book and learn about it. If you don't naturally feel that on your own, you will eventually feel it when you're looking for that spiritual self-care there.
Yes. And, something else that I do, and I actually really kind of do this in nature quite a bit too, is to just really reflect on what I am grateful for. Talking about having a gratitude journal or sitting in satisfaction. And what does that mean to you? What parts of your life are you truly satisfied with? And I know a lot of times when I start working with my clients, this is a very challenging thing for them when I start asking them what they're grateful for in their current life. And a lot of times it's a struggle to start coming up with stuff and get that flowing. But by the end of the coaching time with them, they can list off 30 things in one sitting, right? Because they've cultivated that attitude of gratitude, or they've cultivated the skills to be able to look at their life and recognize the good parts of it. So I like to do that while I'm sitting in nature, just reflect and think about how fortunate I am and how I love where I'm sitting, and then kind of going from there and talking about or thinking about what I'm satisfied with in my current life.
I like that you said that, satisfied with. So we do at dinner time the best and worst parts of your day. And it's always really easy to say the worst part of your day because something stunk today. But it is not always so easy to say what you're satisfied with. What was a good part? Even it doesn't have to be the best part. You didn't have to, conquer a mountain. You didn't have to, go someplace spectacular, but something good happened today. And figuring that out and saying it out loud and putting it out there, I think really helps even children.
It does. Actually, when Damon and I first got together, that was something that I sprung on him at one point in time. I don't know if I've said this on one of the previous episodes, but it was something that I sprung on him, and now it's become a daily practice. What was the best part of your day? It's something that we do at the end of the day, talking about what our favorite part of the day was.
Yeah.
So definitely something you can do. And then one last thing, if nothing that we've talked about has really resonated with you at this point, something else that really we can do is journal.
Yes.
And stream of conscious journaling means to just put your pen on the paper and start writing words. It doesn't matter what flows out. It doesn't matter how it sounds. It doesn't have to be organized thoughts, but just letting it all flow out so that you can clear the clutter, because it really does help you clear the clutter.
Right. And remember, you're not writing an essay to be turned in to be graded. Nobody else will likely see this ever. So it can just be exactly what's in your head. Oh, I keep talking about laundry day because clearly it's living in my head. I did the laundry today. The whites, white socks, white sheets, white bread. Oh, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I mean, it can be whatever flows and just clear your clutter that way.
Right. And super helpful. And it doesn't have to be super long. You can set a timer for just a few minutes. Again, the point of this is to be intentional and do something to connect yourself with God, with the higher power, with whatever it is that you believe in. So I think we'll close with that today. We're kind of running at about the right time. So we're going to leave you with that. But remember to go ahead and like us, follow us, subscribe to our podcast, and we'll be back next week to tell you all about physical self-care.
Yes. And if you have something that you would like us to talk about more, don't hesitate to reach out to us because we are always looking for your suggestions.
Thanks so much for listening.